Radulescu, Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bringing you another incredible guest. He is an entrepreneur, fitness advocate, I love, personal growth enthusiast, mindset coach, owner and founder of Absolute Landscapes, and the host of the Pure Wisdom podcast. Please welcome Cody Jones. Cody, welcome to the show.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you here. You had some success at a very young age.
Well, I wouldn't say success at a young age. I would say I had a direction, at a
Okay.
young age. I had a thing that I wanted to do that nobody really around me, until about 8 years later or so wanted to do. I started a business young. Everybody around me was, had the jobs and the starting the families and all that good stuff. So I was kind of, it's interesting that this is label free podcast because I was kind of the outlier. I was the one that wanted to do, like, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
Wanting to start your own business at 20 years old. So it's interesting. I think that aligns.
I like that you said you had the direction at 20 because I think at
Mm.
20, most people are like just partying and like balls to the walls, out of control, and really just experiencing life. Whereas you had a focus and a direction, which,
Well, I'm sorry. Let me be very clear. I
no,
did my share of that. I did my share of that. But when I say direction, it was more of an internal direction. I just,
yeah,
I tell people all the time when I started this business, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that what I was currently doing was not it. So I just
yeah,
had that internal pull to like, hey, go this way.
yeah. Well, two things can be true at once because believe me, I did my fair share of partying too, and I
Right.
had my own business. So,
Yeah.
but I'm glad I did that because
Mhm.
it's out of my system. I have people now that are my age that are just now starting to party and like just
Right.
experience that life, and I would not want to do that at this point in my life. So I'm glad I got it out of my system, and I was able to, I think when you have a business, it kind of gives you more responsibility and allows you
For
to more
sure.
focus, so you don't get sucked into that lifestyle.
For sure. Well, if you want it to be successful, you almost have to. I mean, you have to evolve as a person.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, so you went job hopping for 4 years, started your business, first business at 20. So now you are a serial entrepreneur. Do you consider yourself having the landscape business and a mindset coach?
I wouldn't say serial, but I also wouldn't say it's out of the possibilities. Out of the realm of possibilities. I feel that if I would have had the drive and motivation and direction that I've had in the last few years, if I would have had
Yeah.
that at 20, I probably would be a serial entrepreneur.
Oh
But
yeah, for
not
sure.
not there yet, sir.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you're certainly on your way. So what made you get into being a mindset coach?
So I have a podcast that I started, and the reason that I really started it was to for one thing, help myself learn from other people who are, in similar situations. I felt like it was a pretty good way for me to share some of the things that I've learned. And then I realized that like there are, you go through these phases, especially like entrepreneurship, you learn these things when you're building a business. You think that like you're the only person that experiences these downfalls or
Yeah.
these, fears or whatever it is. But then you realize, man, like everybody, not only does everybody else feel these things, but it's like the only thing is they have handled it better than what you are currently handling
Mm-hmm.
in the moment. So, I felt that I was able to pursue a business on some of those things that I personally helped myself overcome or that I learned myself. My specific situation as far as the learning what to coach was with the mindset stuff, the
Oh yeah.
overcoming the self-doubt and the fear and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think though it's all about perception because I'm sure people that you've talked to that may you think that have gotten through similar situations easier probably had other situations that were harder for them that you got through
Right.
easier. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I
Hmm.
think that's why it's so important for us to have these dialogues because we learn from each other and your strengths can complement someone's weaknesses and my strengths vice versa, right?
Hmm.
And entrepreneurship is not easy, especially when you start it young and did you ever have a mentor when you first started out?
Uh, not directly. I mean, I went to YouTube and I was, following the Tony
For
Robbins and all
you?
those guys, so, but I didn't work with anyone directly.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't either. I had too much of an ego
Yeah,
back then.
as we
Like I knew it all. Like you couldn't tell me anything. Like I knew it
right.
all. Hindsight, it would have been nice to maybe like not have so much of an ego, but I feel like that's just how we are. We're just full of,
Hmm.
like this energy when we're that young that you know, kind of puts us on the path to greatness, I would say.
Hmm. Well, and I think another key point too, and maybe the point I'm trying to make is that, when we talk about, especially with your theme of your show, I love your theme of your show, by the way,
Thank
label
you.
free. I'm assuming that label free is directed internally towards ourselves, the labels that we have. But I think it's also important too to be aware of the labels we put on other people. For example, if
Yes.
we're on an entrepreneurship journey or whatever it is, we're building a career or whatever, it's easy for us to look at other people and put the label on them as talented or gifted or
Yeah.
lucky or whatever it is. And that's a very disempowering belief to have about others because does talent exist? Obviously yes, it does, but you you would be surprised if you really got if people were being honest with you, you would really
Yeah.
be surprised how many people felt similar to what you do, as far as like things like imposter syndrome and fear and that kind of thing. It's more people than you would think experience that, especially people that you would consider successful.
Oh, for absolutely. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily believe in imposter syndrome so much as I think that fear and that is the same thing. I
Mm,
think imposter syndrome is just another word for being afraid of what could be, or the fear of failure, right? Or the fear
mhm.
of success. And that's
Yep.
where that's how I know I've had these conversations before where we kind of get into that, and I don't know. I don't like that. I don't want to feel like I'm an imposter because there's only one of me, and like
Right.
I can't
Right.
imposter myself. The only thing that I can do is be afraid, and
Yep.
and I am, and I have been. Like there are certain times I do a celebrity segment, I still get very nervous. I've been doing this for 6 years, 700 episodes, and I still get nervous jumping into a celebrity segment because I'm just like, oh my God, I'm interviewing this like icon, and
Yep.
it's like, but then when I'm done, I'm just like, oh my God, I did that. And I feel so good because it's like I
Mhm.
have that thought, like, who the hell am I to interview this person?
Right.
But showing
Well,
up is half the battle.
yeah, it sounds like you're very grounded in who you are, and that's a good thing. But I think for people who do experience imposter syndrome, it's important to understand that is okay. It's okay that you feel
Yeah.
that way, because what that means is that you're trying a goal or a pursuit that you feel like is higher than you are. It's at a different place than what you are, and which of course
Yes.
we all know. One of the best ways to achieve your goals is to become the person who can achieve the goals.
Yeah.
So I think imposter syndrome, for those who allow themselves to experience that and maybe aren't necessarily as grounded as well as you are, it's positive. It's a positive thing if they feel that, because that shows them, like I said, who that they're not where they're supposed to be for that goal
Yeah.
or that dream or whatever.
Have you experienced that imposter
Oh
syndrome?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
In what way? I'm just curious.
So excuse me. In my entrepreneur journey, one of the big things that I was it was a landscaping company, so I was meeting a lot of different people.
Yeah.
I got to a certain point where we sort of went into commercial instead of residential, so we made a transition from residential to commercial. And I would go and meet at these properties, these huge properties, and I would be competing against people who were much bigger companies in business, much longer than
Yeah.
myself. I got to a point where I was networking with other, business owners or
Sure.
whatever at,
Yeah.
different meetings and stuff. And I was just like, man, like I know where I was at even just yesterday, like what I
Yeah.
felt yesterday. And I'm trying to build this thing. And it seems like, again, they're a label. It seems like all these other people have it figured out. And
Yeah.
so it's almost like, and it's the same way for everybody who's experiences imposter syndrome. It's like you create the story for yourself. You literally get in your own way and you
Oh
make it
yeah.
something that is probably not even, I'm not saying to not be aware of your competitors. That's obviously a thing, but yeah, it's just something, it's something that you really create for yourself. So I've experienced that almost every single time that I've tried to, um, grow or
Yeah.
improve or have a big enough goal. You experience that, and like I said, you should, because I don't know who said it. I heard somebody say one time that if your goal doesn't scare you, it's not big enough.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. I've heard that too. And you know, I think fear is one thing that for me personally it motivates me. Like
Hmm.
if I'm afraid, it makes me want to do it even more,
Right.
Like when I started this show, for instance, I'm like, like I said, I don't know who the F I think I am, but I'm going to do it
Hmm.
anyways. And I remember that first intro, like it was yesterday, doing that intro episode. I was just like, I drank a bottle of wine. It took me like 10 times, an intro episode's like a few minutes, 5, 10 minutes,
Right.
but just to sit there and think to myself, like, oh my God, who's going to listen to this? And they're going to judge me and they're going to think this and think that. And, I just had to like, screw it, whatever. The people are going to judge you no matter what anyways, and just do it anyways.
Well, and so that's a very good point, because so you feel the fear and you do it anyways.
Yes.
If you would have went the opposite direction, you're going to be defined by that fear. And it's just so, like, if you do that every time you're afraid of something, you're defined by the fear. You don't want to do it because you're afraid. You do that over a long enough timeline, and this is what I talk to people about a
Oh my
lot.
gosh. Yeah.
Um, you run into a self-confidence issue, because you
Oh yeah.
can't, you're not able to trust yourself, because you look back over a long enough period of time, you're like, well, man, I had all these, I said I was going to do this. The moment came, I didn't do it, whatever it happens to be. And then that rolls into a snowball of, like, trusting your own intuition, which you're not able to do because you can't trust yourself because there's no self-confidence. And so this is,
Self-esteem.
yeah. So that is, it's crazy that you say that, because I'm a very big supporter of, doing those things that are uncomfortable, that you fear.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you highlighted that. I have some people in my family that lack self-esteem from,
Mm,
like, they're grown now, but from a young adult to midlife. And I always would say, just show up for yourself.
right.
I know you lack self-esteem and confidence. Just show up for yourself. Do that one thing. And you're
Hmm.
going to build on that every time you just do it. I know it's scary, but
Hmm.
what do you have to lose? And they've never done it. They've never followed through and still lack self-esteem and confidence to this day. I can't imagine being in my midlife and feeling that way about myself. Like, there's just no way. Like, that's not an option for me.
But what's crazy about that? If if and it's so unfortunate, because it happens to us as children, and we don't know. We're children.
Yeah.
We don't know the difference. But it's like, if something like that, a belief that you've had about yourself, quote unquote, had about yourself for the longest time, if you really analyze it, man, if it comes from childhood, it's probably not even something that you believe about yourself. It's probably something that came from somebody else, whether that unfortunately was a parent, a
Yeah.
sibling, a social circle, a school system, whatever it happens to be. I mean, if you analyze it, if you go deep enough, you might find that, like, man, these things I believe about myself are not even actually my belief. Like, that was something
Yeah.
that was instilled in me, by my environment.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's also an empowering realization, though.
Yeah, for sure. But having to unpeel all of that
Right.
takes effort and having to face some real serious
For
things.
sure.
And someone that's wanting to work on their mindset that works with you, that's the work that you got to help them go through, and to figure
Hmm.
that out and peel all that away so that they can change the way they think about themselves. And I love coaches. I think you guys are awesome. And I really believe that most people need a coach in life, depending on where they're at, because every one of you really focus on something different, and mindset is a huge one, because I think there's so
Hmm.
many people out there that battle these myths, labels, and they
Yep.
don't know how to get past it. And um it's unfortunate. We
Hmm.
have so many tools at our disposal. Like this, we carry a mini computer around in our pocket. I love that you said you taught
Exactly.
yourself with YouTube. I mean, I probably started using YouTube like 10 years ago to start teaching myself stuff. And it's like, when people ask me a dumb question, I'm like, why are you asking me that question? Ask Google. Go,
Hmm.
and so it's like things like that are so minimal. It just shows you how handicapped some people can be in the way that they think.
Yep. And it's excuse me, it's now that we have AI, that ability
Oh,
is even going even farther, because it used to be, you go to YouTube, you go to Google, and you type in, whatever, and you pull up an article or whatever.
yeah,
But now you can go to AI, it searches, it's a large language model. It'll
yeah,
search, some AI will even, if you drop a YouTube link or whatever, it will summarize the video for you. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I tell people all the time, like, social media and online interactions, they obviously have their issues, and there's obviously things that need to be dealt with. But it's like, the positive end of that, like what we're doing right now, this connection that we're doing right
yeah,
now, the learning and the relationships that you can build. I mean, it's fascinating. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we do not use that to the ability that we have it.
yeah.
Especially
I
AI. I know people, there's mixed opinions on AI, and I understand, I get that, but I think artificial intelligence is different from artificial general intelligence, and I don't think people
Oh,
understand that.
That
Yeah.
was good. Can you explain what that means? I like
So
that.
I don't know exactly what AGI is, but AGI is like artificial general intelligence. The way it's been explained to me is like, basically the entity thinks for itself. It does. It's like its own consciousness type thing. That's like
Right.
my understanding is that's like a far out thing. That like we're not right there. We're not. That's not what we're doing with
Hopefully
AI
not,
because
because I've been watching some scary movies.
well, no. So, but if you look at like AI, like Chat GPT and those guys, they're basically large language models, and
Yeah.
they'll search the internet. If you type in a question, they'll search the internet for that relevant question, and then they'll put that in the in the form. But yeah, again, AI is not my thing, but I do know there's a major difference between general intelligence and artificial intelligence.
I use Chat GPT for a lot of stuff for my
Mm,
content and things like that. I
yep,
use many different platforms for how I generate my content, and I personally love it. You
yep,
still have to you still have to generate your own thought to get it to do some of the work for you, and you have
right,
to obviously read it and edit it and make it your own. But I think it's great to keep expect to be efficient, especially
right,
like someone like me who does everything myself. Like I need that efficiency because I don't have
right.
three different assistants helping me with all my content creation. So, I mean, I love the AI. The AGI, I don't know a lot about, but I have been watching some movies, and I think that in the future it will be helpful for us in our civilization. What the conversations I've had with that is the morality behind who is
Right.
programming that AGI. I actually, the guy that was a part of the beta test for ChatGPT, he was on the show many years ago, and we had that conversation. So I had this conversation way before ChatGPT even came out, and it was like he was talking about like the morality behind it, and who is going to program that to make
Hmm.
it so that it doesn't the consciousness doesn't go in a bad direction like we see depicted in movies and stuff. So it was a very interesting conversation, but it also makes you think and it makes you wonder. And,
Hmm.
I'm a fan of AI for my purposes. That AGI, we'll see what that looks like in the future. And
We'll
hopefully,
definitely we'll definitely have to be careful for sure.
yeah.
And the only thing I think about the AI, like the Chat GPT and stuff, is I encourage people to not use it. Don't let it replace your creativity.
Oh,
If you're going to
no.
use it, just like you said, use it for efficiency or something like that. But don't like, you hear people like writing college papers and stuff like that with Chat
Oh,
GPT. That's
there's a,
not, I would not go down that route, because if you do that long enough, man, you're going to be like, you're not going to be able to think for yourself. I mean, you
yeah.
can't, I would not recommend that to anybody.
So yeah, I mean, I actually had this conversation with a professor that was on the show, and I asked him about that. So I'm like, how do you feel if people are using the Chat GPT for their papers? And he's like, well, you can typically tell you know, if it's in their point of view or like computerized or whatever. And
Mm,
a lot of people in school these days, they're like, I have a couple of friends that are professors that they say that they don't even know how to sign their name, and all they can write is in short form because of texting. And so my
right.
one girlfriend who is a PhD in biology or no chemistry, she's had to teach some of her students how to communicate because they don't even know how to
Wow.
write an email. And that's like a very scary thought. Like that is kind of the path that we've gone down.
Hmm.
And it'll if people don't know how to create a thought on their own, yeah, it's definitely going to take away the ability to do that. I mean, my I use AI to help refine my message. I
Hmm.
still write it out and I say, please rewrite for newsletter, please rewrite for social media posts. It's still my thought. It's still what I'm expressing, but it's just
Hmm.
rewriting it in a cleaner format and more effective message to post or to send out in my newsletter. So, yeah, it's still important to generate a thought of your own for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you use
Yep.
do you use ChatGPT?
So I did. I've actually started using a AI called Perplexity, and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
the reason is because ChatGPT. I mean, all of them really. They're not. Nobody is immune to this, but ChatGPT can sometimes make mistakes if you're using it for research.
Oh.
Perplexity is more like research based, and it offers sources for the things that it tells you. Like if you ask it a question, it will give you the answer, but at the end of that sentence it'll have a link for a source that it got that
Oh,
information from.
okay.
Yeah, so Perplexity is really good for people who want to do research or just asking. Like my main purpose for AI really is a search engine. Like
Yeah.
I don't use, I mean, even Google has its own AI response. If you go to
Oh
Google, you
God.
type in a
Yeah.
question, it's got us, but I've personally, and this is no shot at Google. I mean, they've obviously got something figured out, but I've asked Google a question before, and I would read it, and I can't remember what the exact question was, but the response I read, I was like, that's wrong. I know that that's wrong. Like that's
Hmm.
obviously wrong. And so,
Interesting.
anyways, so Perplexity, yeah, I like that it gives you those sources.
Yeah.
It'll say this is the thing, and it'll have a link for a source. You can go to the website. Oh, okay, this is whatever. So,
Yeah. I'm gonna have
yeah.
to check that out. I've never heard of that. Let's get back into like you being a mindset coach. If someone wants to work with you, and you're a fitness advocate, so do you involve fitness into your coaching?
So, yes, and the reason is because fitness was a very big part of my personal journey. And
Mm-hmm.
we probably don't have time to get into that, but there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, fitness, I think it is literally a cornerstone for I think anyone who wants to improve themselves.
Yeah,
And there's so
I
many different reasons for that.
absolutely. I used to compete in bodybuilding, and I still maintain. I try to train twice a day, at least 5 days a week,
Oh
and
wow.
because it really keeps me centered and
Right.
focused, and just that discipline alone of investing into yourself and into your body, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
is definitely helps with personal development.
Mm-hmm. For
Yeah.
sure.
If someone wants to work with you, how do they get a hold of you? What does that look like? Give us the ins and outs of you being a coach for whoever's listening or watching.
So yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's all kinds of different ways. I don't know if do you want me to announce my social medias at this point? Because
Absolutely. I
that's
want you to like give all the
okay.
links. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm on pretty much most social medias. C Jones, the letter C, my last name Jones,
Okay.
803. Some variation of that. There might be a hyphen in there or something, but some variation of that if you search pretty much on all social medias. Coaching specifically, it's info at xlcoaching.academy. You can also connect with me through the podcast. That's Pure Wisdom Podcast, which is on most podcast platforms. Spotify, we're on YouTube, but I try to promote Spotify the best I can
Okay.
because well, I don't know. YouTube is I'm not crazy about the censorship on YouTube
Mm,
personally.
yeah. I haven't experienced
But
that yet, but I know what you're talking about. You guys can
yeah.
put all those links in the show notes as well as on the screen here. So if you connect with Cody, want to learn more, go ahead, click those links, go follow his show, go check it out, and start a conversation. Check him out on social media. If someone tunes into the show, what will they likely take away from listening to Pure Wisdom Podcast?
The goal is regardless of their situation, they can have a zero cost resource to improve their life because we cover a lot of different topics. I mean, there's dating, there's business, there's entrepreneurship, finance.
Yeah.
I try to, health. I try to cover a broad spectrum of self improvement type topics. So hopefully a person can listen in and, scroll to an episode. Oh, that's me. And then, hopefully they'll learn something from that.
Absolutely. No, I love the name of it. Like the name draws me in. So, just wisdom alone. I mean, we can all learn something from these conversations are packed full of wisdom. We talked about imposter syndrome. We talked about AI. We were talking about mindset. Like there's a lot there to take in. And I think that they're very powerful. So I'm definitely a fan in following you. Cody, this is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
So the nature of your show, the label free podcast, I think is the most relevant, helpful thing I can say is that regardless of whatever that thing is, whether it's a business you want to build, a family, a career, a person you want to pursue, a relationship you want to have, whatever it is for you, people will probably not understand it to the degree that you feel drawn to it.
Mm,
So if you feel that it's something that's pulling at you hard enough, if you're passionate enough about it, if it's something that you really want to fulfill in your life, sometimes there are going to be people close to you that do not support that vision. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, that is part of the journey. And
mm-hmm.
there's something called, I'm sure we've all heard of survivor's guilt. There's an accident, a person survives, they're guilty
Yeah.
about that. There's also I guess you would say a phenomenon basically called dreamer's guilt, which is when you are
Mm,
pursuing a thing, you're going for your dreams, you start to
yeah.
achieve those things. Sometimes you have to leave people who are trying to hold you back, you have to leave them behind. And that is unfortunately part of the journey. But I think the key point here is that almost, in fact, not everybody, almost nobody is going to understand your vision the way that you do. And if you stay dedicated to it, if you stay connected with it, and if
Yes.
you continually remind yourself why, you'll make it happen.
That was awesome. I love that. Thank you so much, Cody. We covered so many different things in this episode. Just like I think we probably could have gone down a rabbit hole for hours talking about all these.
I am known to go off a tangent, so I apologize if it was all
Oh,
over the
no, no,
place.
no. It was very good. I mean, we covered so much that, I mean, I just loved it. But those last words were absolutely beautiful. I never heard someone say dreamer's guilt before. And I think that was very impactful. So thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing a little bit of your wisdom with us. And I'm encouraging everyone to make sure you tune into the Pure Wisdom podcast. Cody, thank you so much for being one of our dynamic guests, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.